Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will offer an update on the case of Brian Thompson, including the arrest of Luigi Mangione. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Luigi Nicholas Mangione was born on May 6, 1998, and was raised in Towson, Maryland. His grandfather Nicholas was a wealthy real estate developer who owned several valuable assets, including country clubs and retirement homes. Nicholas died in 2008 from complications of a stroke. In 2016, Luigi graduated from an elite private high school in Baltimore as the valedictorian. In 2020, he graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with both a bachelor's and a master's degree in computer science. That same year, he started working as a data engineer for True Car Incorporated. This company is located in Santa Monica, California. In January 2022, Luigi joined a co-living community in Honolulu, Hawaii, called Surf Break. This community is described as an inclusive global network of adventurers, remote workers, and mindful travelers. It is on the 40th floor of a high-rise building. The rooms rent from $1,600 a month to $3,300 a month. Luigi left the community in April 2022 due to pain from a chronic back condition called spondylolisthesis. Physical activity, like surfing and hiking, had aggravated his condition. Luigi returned to Hawaii in early 2023 and started a book club. In December 2023, he was cited for trespassing at a state park. At some point, Luigi had back surgery and lost contact with his family. They reported him missing to the police on November 18, 2024. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. According to law enforcement, here is the behavior Luigi allegedly engaged in. On November 24, 2024, Luigi took a bus to Manhattan and took a taxi to the New York Hilton Midtown, which is on the corner of West 54th Street and 6th Avenue. He then took a taxi to a hostel on the Upper West Side and checked in using a fake New Jersey identification. On December 4, 2024, Luigi left the hostel at about 5:30 a.m. and traveled back to the area of the Hilton Midtown. He visited a Starbucks before arriving at the Hilton at 6:39 a.m. Luigi's intent was to kill the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson. Brian was in Manhattan for a meeting that was to take place that day at Hilton Midtown. Luigi had a 9mm pistol with a suppressor. On the cartridges, he wrote the words, "deny, defend, and depose." This is similar to a phrase associated with insurance companies, delay, deny, defend. At 6:45 a.m., Brian walked by Luigi's position on his way to Hilton Midtown. Luigi stepped out from behind a vehicle and shot Brian Thompson twice. Brian died after being struck in the back and leg. After the shooting, Luigi fled north on foot and climbed on an electric bicycle. He rode the bicycle into Central Park, then exited on the Upper West Side. Luigi dumped the bicycle somewhere in that area and took a taxi to the George Washington Bridge bus station. He boarded a bus which was headed out of state. Investigators desperately tried to identify the killer. Initially, they had no idea it was Luigi. The police distributed several different images of the killer, which had been captured during his time in New York City, like from the hostel and in the Starbucks. 5 days later, on December 9, 2024, Luigi Mangione entered a McDonald's restaurant on Plank Road in Altoona, Pennsylvania. This small town is 276 miles west of New York City. At 9:14 a.m., an employee called the police after noticing that Luigi looked like the murder suspect featured in the images distributed by law enforcement. The police arrived at the scene and confronted Luigi, who was sitting at the back of the restaurant wearing a mask and looking at a laptop. After he removed his mask, the police recognized him as the suspect. Luigi produced a fake identification bearing the name Mark Rosario. When officers asked him if he had recently been to New York, Luigi began to shake. The police told Luigi that he was under official police investigation and lying about his identity would result in his arrest. At this point, he identified himself as Luigi Mangione. At 9:58 a.m., Luigi was arrested. Some people complain McDonald's is too expensive, but for Luigi, the price was staggering. He definitely did not leave with a Happy Meal. I guess the only thing harder than dodging the authorities is resisting an Egg McMuffin. Luigi actually ordered a hash brown, but it came with a side of justice. When the police searched Luigi and his backpack, they found a few interesting items, including a 3D printed 9mm semi-automatic pistol, the same caliber used to kill Brian Thompson, a magazine containing several 9mm cartridges, they were Full Metal Jacket, just like the ones used in the murder, a 3D printed suppressor, multiple fake identification cards, and a U.S. passport. The fake ID that Luigi showed the police was the same one the killer used at the hostel in New York before the murder. The police also found a 3-page handwritten manifesto. Luigi refused to speak with the police. In the state of Pennsylvania, he was charged with carrying a firearm without a license, forgery, possessing instruments of a crime, providing false identification of law enforcement, and tampering with records or identification. Luigi was denied bail. Not long after this, the state of New York charged Luigi in connection with the murder of Brian Thompson. He was charged with second-degree murder, second-degree possession of a forged instrument, third-degree criminal possession of a weapon, and 2 counts of second-degree criminal possession of a weapon. In the state of New York, second-degree murder is similar to what other states designate as first-degree murder. In order to be charged with first-degree murder in New York, a crime must involve an aggravating factor like killing a police officer or murder for hire. While being escorted to the extradition hearing on December 10, 2024, Luigi had a bit of an outburst and yelled something about an insult to the intelligence of the American people. At the time I'm making this video, Luigi Mangione maintains the presumption of innocence. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Luigi's manifesto suggested that he was angry with the healthcare industry. He specifically mentioned United Healthcare, including how the company was massive and their profits were staggering. Luigi was critical of all health insurance companies for placing profit ahead of care. He said, quote, "These parasites had it coming. I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done," unquote. Item number 2. Luigi occasionally posted messages on a literature-focused social media site called Goodreads. He wrote a review for the manifesto written by Ted Kaczynski, who is also known as the Unabomber. Here is a summary of Luigi's review. This is paraphrased. "It's easy to dismiss the manifesto as the writings of a person with mental illness in order to avoid facing uncomfortable problems identified by the work. Ted Kaczynski correctly predicted many aspects of modern society. He was a violent individual who was rightfully imprisoned. However, that doesn't mean he was mentally ill. A more accurate characterization is that Ted was an extreme political revolutionary." Luigi copied another review which indicated that when all other forms of communication fail, violence is necessary to survive. Large companies don't care about the future, and the term "violence never solved anything" is repeated by violent offenders and those who are afraid. This brings me to item number 3. Based on Luigi's review of Ted Kaczynski's manifesto, it seems pretty clear that he was a fan of Ted. There are a few similarities between the men. Both men were extremely intelligent. Ted had a PhD in mathematics, and Luigi had a master's degree in computer science. Both men had a preference for unusual living conditions. Ted lived in a cabin in Montana. Luigi lived in a co-living community. Until the men were arrested for murder, they had no significant criminal history, and both men blamed certain trends in society for their own problems. Ted was worried about living peacefully in an era of technological expansion, and Luigi was angry that his back hurt even after medical treatment. Item number 4. Luigi had an interest in books about alternative medicine, psychedelics, and recovering from chronic conditions. For example, he was interested in reading a book titled Crooked: Outwitting the Back Pain Industry and Getting on the Road to Recovery, and a book with the title Why We Get Sick: The Hidden Epidemic at the Root of Most Chronic Disease and How to Fight It. Not surprisingly, many of those who promote alternative remedies also express a distrust for physicians and traditional healthcare methodology. In various social media posts, Luigi made it clear that he shared those views. Item number 5. Luigi's political beliefs were expressed in a few social media posts. He appeared to be displeased with both Republicans and Democrats. Donald Trump offended him because he refused to accept the results of the election. Luigi didn't like Joe Biden either because he refused to accept the effects of aging. He viewed both men as desperate to hold on to power. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is who Luigi recommended. Item number 6. Running under the assumption that the state of New York charged the right man. What do I believe motivated Luigi Mangione to kill Brian Thompson? This case is still in its early stages, so it's difficult to tell. People described Luigi as pretty normal, not introverted or extroverted. He was friendly, productive, and likable. He was not described as socially awkward or isolated, and never gave people the impression that he held extreme political views. Usually, in a case like this, I would expect to hear about how the alleged perpetrator was creepy, aggressive, a loner, possessed dark fantasies, was fascinated with destruction, things like that. Luigi doesn't fit any of those descriptions. If he experienced some type of mental health episode, it must have had a rapid onset, or he was very good about keeping the symptoms concealed. Furthermore, it is strange that the episode facilitated criminal behavior, but it did not dramatically diminish Luigi's organizational skills. He was able to develop and execute a complex plot, which involved traveling to Manhattan and then escaping. It's worth considering, however, that Luigi did make several mistakes consistent with being disorganized, like keeping the weapon, the ammunition, and fake identification. He also wrote a manifesto, which can function pretty well as a confession. Another unusual aspect of this case is how Luigi appeared to have both personal and ideological motives. His chronic pain left him angry at physicians, but he also developed a wider hatred of the healthcare system. When people attempt to explain their problems, they can attribute the difficulties narrowly or broadly. On the narrow side, they describe specific circumstances that led to their difficulties, like being victimized by a person who is incompetent. An example would be a student who receives a failing grade on a math test because the teacher made a mistake when grading. If they look at the problem broadly, they focus on systemic issues, like the inefficiency of government. Using the same example of the math test, the student received a failing grade because the school district was underfunded due to corruption and did not supply him with adequate study materials. Luigi appeared to be using a broad attribution. In his mind, his difficulties were caused by a broken system. Furthermore, he rationalized being violent and allegedly carried out a murder. Luigi did not know Brian Thompson. Brian did not do anything to him personally. Rather, Luigi killed him to take down the system. He was looking to make a larger statement. Whether mental health symptoms contributed to this way of thinking is a mystery at this point. Now moving to my final thoughts. It's possible that Luigi is going to use the defense based on mental health. It might be his only hope. If he does, he may want to consider the fate of his hero, Ted Kaczynski. Ted suffered from schizophrenia, yet resisted any effort to mount a defense based on insanity. He insisted that he was fine as far as his mental health. Ultimately, Ted pleaded guilty to all charges. This is an example of the no-win scenario that mentally ill offenders sometimes face. If they say they are mentally ill, nobody believes them, and they go to prison. If they deny having a mental illness, people may actually believe they are ill, but the end result is still prison. If Luigi is hoping that people side with him because he killed a controversial figure, he will be in for a disappointment. Many people view Luigi favorably, but that is not going to prevent him from taking a magical prison journey. Those are my thoughts on the case of Luigi Mangione and Brian Thompson. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.